Hello, Kardec Radio. Today is the new year, 2019, January 6th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between, and all the time zones around the world. We are live streaming from you on Kardec Radio Facebook page. And welcome everybody to the new year. Hope everyone had a great Christmas and a wonderful new year also. Of course, we are here for the main reason, and that is to discuss Spiritism, all brought to you by the codifier of Spiritism, Allan Kardec. Now, for those of you who see here, I'm in a different position. So we have left our original house. We're staying temporarily, probably about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, in a friend's house. So there's might be background noise and other things happening. So, and the lighting may not be as good, etc. So I just wanted to warn you about that. So we are here temporarily for a while till we situate our next step, which is going to Brazil. So I want to just welcome everybody again tonight, and we are going to talk about verse 16, a devotion to study. So what does that mean? So first of all, let's review. Oh, New Zealand. Excellent. I'm so glad New Zealand's listening to Kardec Radio, and especially Kardec Radio Facebook page. So let's go back and look at what was written by Andre Luis. Oh, Johnny Brazil's from Canada. That's wonderful. So Andre Luis wrote this poem during a medium's meeting with Chico Xavier there. And the poem was named Inner Peace. And each short stanza is kind of a step towards how do you ascend? How do you get inner peace? How do you grow in this life? So you're prepared, and when you go back to the spirit realm, you have actually improved yourself. Oh, hello, Happy New Year to you, Barry. So let me read the poem just to let you know, so you can see how it grows. And that's actually how I did my book, right? It's How to Live Inner Peace to Spiritism. And each chapter talks about each stanza, what it means, and how you can achieve it, in my humble opinion, of course. So this is it, Inner Peace by Andre Luis. Keep always, would be first, trust in God and yourself, a serene conscience, time spent on productive matters, a constructive speech, a prayer allied to work, hope in action, an industrious patience, a dispassionate opinion, the blessing of comprehension, a participation in everyone's progress, a compassionate attitude, truth enlightened by love, oblivion of evils, happiness in your commitments, unconditional forgiveness of offenses, and where we are today, a devotion to study. You see how it steps up, each one. It starts with trust in God. It starts with a serene conscience. I mean, you have to follow your conscience. All these are foundation, right? Time spent on productive matters, a constructive speech. Now we're getting into more and more advance of how to really start modifying your character. First was laying the foundation to listen to your conscience, to let the good vibrations, the good harmony, pervade throughout your body and with other people around you. So because they will recognize this, they'll recognize your calmness and your steadfastness. Now we're getting to the point where devotion to study. What does that mean? After all, what Andre Luis is telling us is to ascend spiritually, one must study. So, but why? Right? Can't you just be caring and loving without any external knowledge, just the warmth of your heart? And the answer is yes, you can make a good part of the journey with your own inclination of love. And in fact, as you said by the poem Inner Peace, it is essential. It is foundational. But without knowledge of the spirit realm, what it is, how we are related to it, why we are on this planet, why must we have multiple lives? Why do bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people? Oh, good evening to Soul. The answers to all the above and more, and that provides kind of the second level foundation for the rational responses to life's vicissitudes and sets your character and personality on track. On track to have a strong will, to focus your energies for good, always on the side of the light. And I'm doing this, and I'm talking about this only because I have researched and studied anything I could find about the spirit world. I have written before how predictions about my future told to me by my wife came true. Detailed predictions, not general, like you will travel, right? These are detailed predictions, like you will be successful, right? Not like that, but this was like, this will happen to you. This next thing will happen to you. And of course, she had her revelations during a near-death experience. She saw her future, and of course, my future as her husband. And finally, when I realized that after many years of disbelief, when she would tell me things, right, she ended up to be 100% accurate. Oh, peace a dulce, peace to you too. And when that hit me, that okay, if someone can tell the future accurately with detail that there's no one. I mean, here's my wife's from Brazil, and things were said about that would happen that they would have no idea. I mean, it's possible, very small possible, but um, not probable. And with that, when that finally hit me, that last event that said, okay, this happens exactly as you said, I had to cast off my old certainty that life was a series of chaotic events and personal choices. Sometimes you could guide your own destiny. Other times, happenings too large to withstand pushed you onto other paths. Just randomness, right? You were born to this whatever family, and etc. But when I realized the future was laid out before my eyes, I had to reconsider all of my past notions. I had built up rules, certainties that had been the basis for my philosophical and moral code. The fact that the future was known demolished everything I had constructed. So why? Why would that demolish? Because you start first with, how could destiny be pre-written? And if destiny was pre-written, that means there was something who was writing it. There wasn't just, we're not just in this universe that all these random events and evolution happens and the earth was formed and we're here, just because of, things in motion from the Big Bang. No. Now, what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying it's, when people take the Bible literally, that, God made the earth in 6 days. No, and Spiritism tells us that, is that, remember, the Old and New Testament was delivered to people who could understand the communication to them, given their level of technology and their cultural level. So many things are scientists say, there is evolution, but it actually is guided evolution. And I can talk about that in other talks. So the fact is, when I found out that future events could really be told, then there's something out there that's guiding us. And I searched the books, I searched the internet, I talked to people. There were religions which believe in predestination, and there were scientists who believe that everything, we're actually living in a 3D hologram. I read it all. And I instinctively understood that, again, if the future was pre-written, to think about this, then a higher civilization must be writing it. To us, we could call it God, the supreme being, the supreme intelligence, the spirituality, any other name denoting an organization and a process that we did not understand. But I had to gain at least a partial hint of what was directing my every move. Because if life was planned, then it had to have a purpose. If life has a purpose, then each one of us is traveling towards a goal. Therefore, what is our goal? Why make such an enormous investment in humans on this planet? These questions burn inside me. This is all about, once you have these questions, and once you have love and faith and you start reading about things, then you really start solidifying the foundation of your faith. So what I did is I reread the Bible, the Old and New Testament. I read about Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, and many spiritual texts. Only after started exploring near-death experiences and messages from spirits communicated through mediums, that I started to get a sense that a spirit realm existed and was driving humanity. Then I found the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. Now, Allan Kardec, of course, and here's the Spirits book. Allan Kardec was not a medium. He is the codifier of Spiritism. And of course, I would like to say this every time, but you can buy this on the EDICI bookstore. Just take his picture, click on his picture on my website, nwspiritism.com. It'll take you to the EDICI bookstore, or you can find them on Amazon, or you can put in Allan Kardec PDF, and you'll find all of his books on PDF. So if you that's how I found it first. You don't have to spend a dime on it if you don't want. So Allan Kardec, as I said before, he was not a medium, but he was fascinated with the communications he had heard while he was present in medium meetings. And so think about how each of us, right? There's this little key, my wife's NDE. Allan Kardec kind of went to these mediums meetings, and they go, "What is this for real? I should ask him a bunch of questions, right?" This will happen to you, and I'm sure it has happened to you. Is look at those keys, those little keys, those little, as Carl Jung said, those synchronicities were not by mistake. It's just like anyone who has an NDE and came back and thought about it. Those were not by mistake. Those were guided. And those little things that got you interested in what we're talking about today, those are all synchronicities that are guiding you to a higher spiritual plane. So when he went to these meetings, he was told by high-level spirits that he had a mission. And he wrote up a list of questions that he provided to many mediums in various cities throughout Europe. He compared the answers to the same questions from different mediums and only published those responses which were similar. Brilliant way of doing it. And as he talked about in his book, he said, look, if I had just used one medium and talked to one spirit, then that's just my word against everybody else's. But I talked to many mediums, and these mediums did not know that other mediums had the same question. So, I mean, that is, I have not heard anyone else do that, and as far as any other mediums, to my knowledge. So that was a very smart move by Allan Kardec. He brought all these things together and said, okay, what is happening? And that's where he started to, he did these series of 1,019 questions. And they're just, once you read the Spirits book, it just, it just hits you like this, like, oh my heavens, here's the answers. It's amazing. It's just like what you've been waiting for. Of course, everybody learns differently. So not everyone will learn like I do. That's why I've written my books. If you look on my website, nwspiritism.com, I have a book about reincarnation. I have Explore Your Destiny, about the spirit world. I have all the 3 books, Heaven and Below, the Spirits and Spirit Universe, How Spirits Guide Us, that I've written, all from the messages with Reverend G. Vow, and I've done The Problem is a Solution, what problems you have, why are they actually good for you, right? When Jesus said, blessed are the people who are afflicted, just to summarize very quickly, what he was saying is all part of why we need to build our knowledge. Because when you think of, blessed are the afflicted, well, why should you be blessed? Because if you're maimed, or you're hurt, or your son or daughter or your parents died, why you should be blessed for that? Well, that's all. This is why devotion, the study, is important, because there are good answers. In fact, there was just this, and I've been rereading this again, I don't know for how many times, in the Gospel According to Spiritism. A lot of these questions are also answered here. Great book, by the way. And the answer is, blessed are the afflicted, because those people are actively paying back or learning a new lesson that they needed to do in order to modify their character in order to ascend. And if you can understand Spiritism and understand that when these things come and happen to you, and you say, oh, thank you. You just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. This is the lesson I needed. Now, it's easy for me to say, and heaven forbid, right? I haven't succeeded in doing that, because I always like, wine first, and then I catch myself, lately, knowing, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? If you can be better than I am, God bless you. But these are things that happen to us all for a reason. We're not on earth, on a resort, right? To drink our little drinks with the umbrella in it and sit in the sun. No, we are going to school. Just as you tell your children, oh, I don't want to go to school today. Nope, you're going to school and learn. That's your job. Our job is to go through life and be exposed to different trials and tribulations. Now, some trials and tribulations aren't only because of what we've done in the past, but some are just experiences we need to make us a more mature spirit. So, what did Allan Kardec find out? He found out his task was to bring to the human race the third revelation and the information promised by Jesus in the New Testament, which would be sent by the Spirit of Truth. And this was in John chapter 14, verses 15 to 17. If you love me, keep my commands, and I will ask the Father, and he will give you another consoler to help you and be with you forever, the Spirit of Truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him, but you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. Oh, well, thank you, Dulce. Yes, I will take comments and questions. So you just type them in and I'll go off on a tangent because I like this to be interactive. So if you have questions, just go ahead and ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And also for anybody, you can always go to my website, NW Spiritism, and there's like a contact me, about me section. And then you can always send me an email. Many people do that, and I'll certainly respond to your email too. So there's always that also. So the Spirit of Truth, that was the organization, really the organized by Spirit of Truth, that's sent Allan Kardec through mediums of his choice, multiple mediums, the information that's codified in the Spirit's book. And why were these things only given to Allan Kardec in the 1850s? Well, again, Spiritism told us the answers. You notice that the Old Testament, it was a very directive, like, oh, no, you're going to do this or we're going to punish you. The New Testament, more full of love and forgiveness, right? It started to try to set that. But of course, they didn't say anything about love everyone, no matter, right? And everyone points out, how many bad things are in the Old Testament, go and kill everybody in the city, or in the New Testament, there's things that, that putting women in a certain category, etc. But that was the culture. If they had said, oh, you reincarnate and you should forgive everybody and, and know that, you should be fraternal with everyone, not just your own little tribe, it never would have gone anywhere. So we are continually given information according to what we can comprehend and accept, right? So think about that. So what the spirits tell us, and from Allan Kardec, is that the spirit that we were told these things, right? And then we can think about them and we can accept them, but only as much as our foundational culture and technology will allow us. And that we will be given more and more information as we go. And that to remember, the messages of love and fraternity and charity are eternal in the Old and New Testament. So Allan Kardec found out he had a mission, just like I had found out I had an opportunity, I wouldn't call it a mission, but an opportunity to explore Spiritism. Now, in the Spirit's book, which astonished me, love Allan Kardec. Yes, Eliza, absolutely. So in the Spirit's book, I didn't, which is different than when you read the Bible or you read all the verses, in Buddhism, etc. And, they're very great things. I'm not saying anything bad because they're wonderful texts. But what I got, and it's maybe because I'm, technical education, computer science, right? I didn't get vague homilies or fuzzy descriptions of angels or the afterlife, right? I read logical explanations for our world, the spirit world, and the human conditions. And from there, I searched out any other spiritist literature I could find. I found out that while Spiritism was codified in the 1850s by Allan Kardec and enjoyed a brief kind of success, however, the Catholic Church and other religions did their best to stamp it out. Whereas in Europe and in America, they were mostly successful in stamping it out. Spiritism sprout back up in Brazil, many marvelous mediums and people, such as Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, who rekindled Spiritism in Brazil, helped keep the light of Spiritism lit. But it was really, in the modern times, in 20th century, I should say, it was Francisco C. Xavier, also called Chico Xavier, who made Spiritism widely known throughout Brazil during the 20th century, and whose books I have so relied on to study Spiritism. And since discovering them, I have found other authors, all Spiritist mediums, who are dedicated to bringing forth messages from the spirit world to lead us to knowledge. And there's many wonderful authors. So you can look up, now, not all of Chico's stuff, I wish it was, but there's like over 500 books now, I think as of last count. A small percentage, well, decent percentages are in English. There's books by Yvonne Piera, Devaldo Franco, and others. So I would really recommend you find anything like you can. And what I have done in my books, I really have taken these books and I've tried to put those and go through general categories and kind of give you glimpses. And what I take, let me answer that question in 1 second. And then I try to explain things from a little bit different angle. And I take all the writings from any Spiritist author I have found in English that was translated in English and kind of distilled that to kind of help people study Spiritism. This is really an important one we're talking about, because really what I have done is hopefully is giving you the literature you need to study. Now, there's a question. As an American, do you think that the Puritan culture that was at the foundation of the country may be an obstacle for the spread of Spiritism in the country? Well, yes, to a degree, absolutely, because what you see is, as people talk about the U.S. Constitution, I talk about strict constructionists, right? You should interpret the Constitution as the founders of the country meant it. And the Puritan ethic is you see that in a lot of many unique Christian religions that you see a lot of people is one is you interpret the Bible literally, which Spiritism tells us, no, you should not do that. So yes, it is somewhat of an obstacle. Now, what I've seen is, and there's nothing wrong with this. Those people are all wonderful people, and they found that, and they believe that, and God bless them all. But I've had people say, well, in the Catholic, the religious say you can't talk to spirits, right? Well, when the Christians first started, each little group talked to spirits, and a lot of the groups actually believe in reincarnation. This was like taken away from them, and in fact, the passages, what the spirits have told us, is that the passages in the Bible talking about reincarnation, which you can actually still find many, but those were taken out because the kind of the people who got to have power within the church didn't want people to think, well, next life I could be a beggar because I, didn't live my life well this time. And it also gave them less power over people. So yes, I believe that some of that culture is that way. But what I've also seen, though, is that's why it's this great question, is that people who see that strict interpretation of the Bible, such as, homosexuality is bad, they still want to be spiritual, but they don't want this kind of mean, message. And this is what was so interesting in the Spirits book. And I pointed out in the Spirits book, they're asked, what is marriage? And the answer is marriage is between two spirits. And then later in the Spirits book, well, do you come back male all the time or female all the time? And they said, no, a spirit comes back as to whatever is set for them, whatever works best for them. So even in the Spirits book, they didn't say it out and out, but marriage could be between two of the same sex. It's all it is love of two spirits. This was really interesting. So you find these things in here, little gems, and you have to kind of interpret them, because if they said that in 1850s, that would have been really verboten. So, but you can read that. So, so I see a lot of people who want to be spiritual, right? But then they still don't have any foundation. And this is where I think Spiritism can help so many people, because it really tells you, okay, what are we doing on earth? And this is why studying this, and we can help talk to other people. And we can actually say, what is heaven about? Right? What is heaven about? Now, let me go on the, so what I want to finish this little section here is, I have found that as I have learned more, I am able to intellectually modify my inner character for the better. So not only, as I've talked before, is that you've got to kind of rewire your brain to stop these primitive emotions, but actually by studying and reading, you start making, you start making changes to your belief system, and your personality is then also changed, right? And therefore these things will help. Okay, whenever, please explain the difference between spiritualism and spiritism. Well, let's talk about this for a second. So spiritualism is more knowing that there is something on the other side. There are spirits, right? And there's this inner vibration, and there's harmony. And in a lot of spiritualism, some people say we're all part of the one, and when we die, we go into the oneness. And it's a lot of amorphous, type knowledge that people have kind of all brought together. It's kind of a broad definition, where spiritism really all comes from this book, the Spirit's book. And this tells us about the other side. This gives us so much more information. And it's, so you can, if you read my series of 3 books that I got from, I took the messages sent to the Reverend G. Owen. He got these messages in the early 1900s, and he was actually talking about heaven, how it's organized. What do you do there? How do you ascend? You don't just ascend here on earth. You go through different levels of heaven. You are always learning. You're always working. And the work you do is excellent work. It's work that you want to do and you like. But so Spiritism gives you very specific, right? Specific answers to questions. And this is why Spiritism is different than anything else. Now, you have a lot of mediums, and they'll say, yes, I know we're reincarnated. And, they're all like, they're spiritualism, right? And they say, yes. And, some people, they stay on the earth, which is called the lower zone, or the umbral in Portuguese. And they understand this, right? But they don't, and they're very spiritually active. But if they would read and study Spiritism, they would understand why some spirits are locked on the earth. They would understand why there are higher spirits. They would understand why angels appear bright to them, angels, but they're really just us, because they have more love, and that love is reflected. They would understand more of what they're talking about. I hope that helps answers that question. So, and of course, this is all part of a devotion to study, right? Because studying when you do involved analysis and pondering over what you've just read, not only adds your memory circuits to your brain, but your super ego and id are in the process of being rewired for the better. Because now you can say, I know my purpose, I know other people's purpose, and humanity's purpose. We're all here. We're being trained to become civilized souls, right? So let's take the reverse of that. So what happens if you don't study? So for the vast majority of us here on earth, we live in a life of pursuit of earthly pleasures. I was certainly one of them. Unaware or disinterested in spiritual growth. How many lives have I wasted? I shudder to know the truth. In Allan Kardec's book, Heaven and Hell, there's an interview with a spirit locked in the lower zone. That's the space between the dark abyss, which is below, or at the level of the crust of the earth below. And the lower zone starts there, right? And as Chico would say, the lower zone starts at the tip of your nose, and it goes up to the level of heaven. And this is what was written in the book, Heaven and Hell. Again, this is one of Allan Kardec's book. A spirit presented itself spontaneously to the medium under the name Angeli. And And then the medium around the table said, have you repented of your wrongs? And Angeli said, no. And they asked, well, why have you come? To try to do so. Well, aren't you happy then? No. He goes, are you suffering? No. What do you lack? Peace. And while admitting that their mental state is unbearable, some spirits consider suffering to be only that which reminds them of physical pain. So then they ask, how is it that you lack peace in the spirit life? The answer was regret of the past. And they asked, regret of the past means remorse. Have you repented then? No, it's for fear of the future. What are you afraid of? The unknown. Then they asked, would you be willing to tell me what you did during your last existence? Perhaps that would help me to enlighten you. And then the answer was nothing. Well, what was your social position? Then they started diving in. I was middle class. Were you married? I was a wife and mother. Did you zealously fulfill the duties of both positions? And she answered, no, my husband and kids bored me. How did you spend your life? The answer was entertaining myself as a young girl, getting bored as a young woman. What were your occupations? None. Well, then who looked after the house? The maid did. He goes, isn't it uselessness that you might find the cause of your regrets and fears? And she said, well, maybe you're right. Well, they told her agreeing is not enough. Would you like to atone for that useless existence by helping the guilty spirits suffering around us? She asked, why? By helping them improve themselves with your counsels and prayers. I don't know how to pray. Goes, we will do it together. Will you learn? Would you like to? She said, no. And they go, well, why not? It's tiresome. So, I mean, you could, how many people you know just like this? I don't even want to read a book, right? It's tiresome. This is from the 1850s. It still hits the nail on the head today. Now, the Spiritists call this being parked. So you go into life and you're just parking, meaning you're merely surviving, learning little, doing little, contributing little. Who knows how many lives I parked. It is the act of wasting one's time in a physical body on earth, or in the spirit world, actually. It delays one's ascendance. And while this particular communication was in the mid-19th century, it could have been at any time. To make it current, I would have to substitute the word maid for the word nanny and possibly add, I allowed my children to be raised and entertained by television, internet, and other forms of social media. You wouldn't have known when that was from. The male form of being parked is similar and also Blake. It involves the pursuit of pleasures, of using people for their own satisfaction, and of ignoring everything else, be it their wives and children or even family and friends. The central theme of parking is the lack of spiritual growth, learning nothing from the planned life presented by the spirit realm, the lack of analysis and interest in those close to you, and the utilization of whatever is around you in the search of personal pleasure above all else. Now, the spirit Joanna in the book Family Constellation, now, her books were actually all psychographed by Devaldo Franco. So in case you're looking for that, the author would be Devaldo Franco. And in my book, How to Live, and all of my books, I have extensive, if for anything, when I quote anyone, if you look at this, I have all the footnotes, everything. So you know exactly what book I quoted from. So if you're interested in getting more into Spiritism, you can look up every book that I've taken from our website or wherever I have. I've also taken information from different YouTube videos. So the book Family Constellation was published in 2008. So a lot of this stuff is recent. Remarks on the dangers of our current situation and how to handle its effect on the young. This is what she said. The excess of convenience offered by technological advancements have been propitiating to materialism, the implementation of a perverted logic that alienates the individual by throwing he or she in the abyss of nonconformism resulting from his or her insatiable ambition and the expectancy of immediate pleasures in view of the constant presence of the destructive death. Therefore, Pesco, Happy New Year from you. We got Australia, New Zealand, all over. Therefore, carrying on with the quote, the implementation of new educational methods is quite natural among those who work for the student to be, to learn, to do, and to live together in order to build up a psychological maturity in the new generations, providing them with skillful means to be a balanced choice of what possesses and what to be. Her advice is pertinent for all of us, is to be, to learn, to do, and to live together, not to be lost in an internet haze of idle conversation, propaganda, or games. And I can certainly see how dangerous this is. Very dangerous is for the youth, where they're just on their phone and they have the social media telling them, just like someone said about high school a long time ago. This is high school is where everybody gets together to reinforce their own misconceptions. And that's what's happening on the internet. It's teaching people to be rude. It's teaching people to not to be nice. And it's, in our current college system right now, it's teaching people that if you don't want to hear another point of view, you can just shout it down, which is not. This is why Spiritism, this is why education and devotion and study is so important. No, you're not supposed to filter out anything you don't like, right? You're constantly supposed to filter out actions you should not do. But you're supposed to be here. You're on this planet of atonement to be exposed to everything, so you can learn how to be a mature spirit. So if you look at what was given to us in Allan Kardec's Heaven and Hell and other spiritual literature, there's a lot of examples of this, is you need to use your life very productively, right? You need to use your life to improve yourself. And that is understanding the need also for education. The Spirit Emmanuel in the book Thought and Life tells us about the importance of art of education in our quest for perfection. This is what he said. Christ said, "Let your light shine," Matthew verse 5:16, chapter 5, verse 16. And it is he, the divine master, who is our sublime guiding light in the evolution of this planet. People used to believe that the Lord's advice was only a mystical calling upon urging superficial worshippers within orthodoxy to believe in a supposed individual prominence to be acquired after death upon entering an imaginary celestial court. However, today we recognize that his lessons should be applied in all situations of everyday life. Nowadays, earthly science recognizes the presence of light in all places. A deeper study of the human body has revealed that it is more a vehicle of energy than it is a state of matter, a compound of infinitesimal particles reciprocally attracting and repulsing each other, causing microscopic explosions of light. They actually have seen that. Chemistry, physics, and astronomy have demonstrated that terrestrial man lives and moves amidst a realm that is crisscrossed by rays. In this glorious domain of energy, we have our mental radiations conditioning the elements through which life is expressed. Thought is a creative force projected by the person who generates it by means of subtle waves and circuits of action and reaction. This is as measurable as the photon which, on receiving impulse through the luminous systems it produces, travels through space as a predetermined speed, thus sustaining the glowing breath of creation. Again, we say the human mind is a mirror of light which projects and assimilates rays. So let's think about that for a second. We are so much more than just this matter, right? Remember, Spiritism tells us we are spirit, the paraspirit, and the human body. And we lose the human body when we go. This paraspirit is the kind of covers our human body, and it's the channel of communication between our spirit, which are a much more powerful mind, and our human mind. But this is really more of a logical existence. Emmanuel is really telling us we are, and spirits use this a lot. They say, they say a personality. You're a personality, and you can also you could quite interpret that as you are this bundle of logic, and you're this bundle of an individual character of logic, but also at the same time, you're always communications always coming from the spirit world. Other humans' thoughts are going through you, and you're always being affected. And in this multiple lives, and that's why we're given trials, is for us to create this personality that is a wonderful, loving, and caring person, and to get rid of the primitive parts of our programming, per se, of this personality that we are. And this is the other thing about Spiritism tells us. When we die, we are who we are, right? We don't change. We don't become part of the one, as was asked by Dulce. With a lot of spiritualists believe. No, we are still ourselves individuals. Now we're more in tune and more in communication. The law of affinity puts us towards other people like us, but we are still distinct individuals. Let me go more of what he said, I should say. However, the mirror is more or less a prisoner of the thick shadows of ignorance, just as before excavation and a precious stone is encrusted by subterranean sediments. In order to be able to give off celestial irradiations and project its own brightness, it is indispensable to cast off this layer of darkness through a process of perfectioning and enlightenment. Hence, the real need of education for everyone. Let us also remember the word of the eternal benefactor when he said, "Let your light shine," meaning that the potential of light in our spirit should shine to its fullness. Such a state can only be reached through the kind of education that will offer the required improvement. But education that refines the intellectual and improves mankind's inner world in knowledge and goodness. Wisdom and virtue is not achieved merely by instruction from the outside. Rather, it must have the conscious consent of the will. When the will dedicates itself freely and spontaneously to goodness without any constraints, it can liberate and refine the heart, imprinting on it a crystal image of the soul. The soul is then able to reflect the glorious life, subsequently transforming the mind into a precious powerhouse of superior energy, projecting reflexes of beauty and sublimation. So, what did Emmanuel tell us? He made it perfectly clear that our spirit is energy, encapsulated energy, which is distinct. In our energy form, we are a personality, as I said before. Our spirit can be modified by our sojourn on this planet. In fact, the only baggage that we can take with us after death is the accumulation of modifications to our core personality. When we dedicate ourselves to learn and to evolve spiritually, we aren't just adding more memories to the synapses of our brain, our programming, which are reprogramming. We're reprogramming the core, the central us, our personality, which will return with us to the real home, the home we spent the vast majority of our immortality, the spirit world. And as with so many sayings of Christ, Spiritism reveals the hidden meanings. Jesus knew full well about the spirit world, but he couldn't expose the whole extent of what it was or what it means. The society at that time just wasn't ready. Even now, we are given drips and drabs of information. Spiritism tells us that as we learn and gain wisdom, more will be forthcoming. Again, that's one of the differences between Spiritism and spiritualism. Spiritism is a complete doctrine. And it tells us all these things, right? And it tells us we're going to keep learning. So hence, Jesus well understood that letting your light shine meant to rewire your central core, to re-educate yourself away from primitive instincts to altruistic learnings. As you ascend spiritually, the reflection of love from your personality is brighter. This is why high angels appear as bright as headlights and most humans on earth appear a dull gray. Emmanuel lets us know that we are always connected. Energy rays from our thoughts leave us, and in return, we are bombarded with the thoughts of an infinite amount of other creatures. All data is at our command when we learn to utilize it. Of course, that's when we become in the spirit world. Therefore, taking a class for a semester or quarter, listening to a lecture, watching a video are all edifying methods to acquire knowledge. But it takes real introspection and a desire to change your core to really grasp the golden ring of serenity. So how does one begin the voyage to transform yourself? The Spirit Joanna supplies the answer. This is what she says. She's so wise. To be born in a new body is to unfold one's possibilities, to obtain self-consciousness, liberating oneself from rough condensations of ignorance. That effort occurs through the hurtful injections of illnesses, which are depurative processes that free one from the lower stages in what one moves about. When analyzing the law of cause and effect, imperative progress happens by means of repairing deceits, mistakes, and crimes. It also occurs by rectifying them and perfecting the superior tendencies that start to bloom. So what is she telling us? She's telling us that our trials and tribulations point to the path we should pursue. A lesson plan has been created and reviewed in the spirit world. We just need to follow it. And the challenge is to analyze your hardships you encounter and then identify the weaknesses in your character your trial was attempting to expunge. Now, I'll use myself as an example. Multiple times in my life, I was able to receive a nice sum of money. I was in a relatively high position, and when the company I was working for was bought out, I was entitled to a payment when I was released. I was given a six-figure amount like 2 times in my career, and I counted myself very fortunate. Each time I thought I made prudent investments, and yet I invariably lost what I had gained completely. I was devastated. I was subsumed by anguish and remorse of having lost such a sum. I couldn't think of anything else but my wasting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When I found Spiritism, I found the answer. I was given those trials to demonstrate to me 2 main points. First, I was shown what it felt like to lose a considerable amount of money. In reading the books by Francisco C. Xavier, I learned where we must rectify our errors in past lives. I knew and was later told in the Spiritism mediums meeting that I had taken money unjustly from others. Hence, I was fortunate to experience what I had done. Now I know how it feels and how wrong it is to take from others and what they had so painstakingly worked for and had plans for. My avarice was a black hole in my heart, and it had to be removed. And I really should count myself lucky, because the spirit world, what they do is they give you these lessons. They give you very easy lessons. Another example is in Members of a Suicide, the person, Camila Branco, was he committed suicide when he was like in his late age, I think 70s, 80s. I can't remember his exact age, because he was going blind. And think about it, and he didn't like that, right? And so think about it. Okay, so he was blinded, and then what happened is he went into a spiritist hospital after he spent the part of his life in the lower zone when he would originally die. He said, okay, this is why you were going blind in your older age, because he had been a part of the Spanish Inquisition and he had actually blinded people. So him losing his sight at a late age was a very easy lesson. Just like I think my lessons were. Losing money like that was so. And now, this is what we all have to remember. If you can learn these lessons gracefully and put those into your core, you don't have to learn them again. But if you don't learn that lesson gracefully, guess what? You're going to get another lesson that may be a little even more dramatic. So secondly, I was presented with the message that material wealth is second to spiritual wealth, right? That's what I was told by this. The second time I lost my little fortune, I soon found my wife in Spiritism, and the pain from allowing money to slip from my hands disappeared as I encountered the truth that any material gain would accompany me to the other side. Only my actions and the alterations to my character, that love on earth is indescribably superior to money in the bank. Nothing can replace love. You can always make enough money to survive. The spirit world will help you. If I hadn't sought out and studied Spiritism, devotion to study, I would not have adequately learned the lessons provided me. Why I would have been more sympathetic when people lost their fortunes. I wouldn't have understood in my heart, deep into my heart, the transitory nature of wealth and the overriding primacy of love. Only by analyzing the situation and pondering what it means to your level of spirituality can you derive the full extent of the object lesson provided, fully taking advantage of the intimate classroom experience provided to you by the other side will enable you to accelerate your spiritual growth. Your devotion to study will be rewarded. The Spirit Joanna explains, this is what she says. In order to end suffering, it is essential to acquire a responsible attitude capable of going back to the origins of suffering, analyzing them and working them out with planned, purposeful direction. Educating one's thoughts, disciplining one's habits, and being sure of one's goals are skillful means for ending suffering. Otherwise, therapies and techniques become mere palliatives. This is what she said. Hence, casually listening to the lesson while distracted with the pleasures of life will cause your next life to be similar to your present life. Failing the class means the lesson must be repeated. On the other hand, internalizing information provided and its cure will result in a reward in heaven and in your next life. There is no better return on your time on earth than investing in your spiritual education. Anduce says this, I believe this is the great difference in Spiritism, the concept that repentance is one part of the healing process. We must repair the wrong we did. I think that's a really excellent point that I did make, is yes, this is why you learn why these things happen to you, right? Because in spiritualism, it's all about the spirit world and these type of things. Yes, they do believe in reincarnation, but it's the brilliant process whereby we are gone through maturity and made into perfect spirits, right? Because Spiritism tells us this basic thing: we will all become perfect spirits one day. Jesus Christ started out just like us. We will be a perfect spirit like him, like other like Socrates and Buddha, right? We will be at that level. It'd probably take me billions and billions of years, but at one day we will become those wonderful people. And that's why we're going through this education. And in these books, Heaven and Below, these series of 3 books that I've written, it really tells you about what's waiting for us in heaven and what we're doing. And what's really great about these books is it tells us, the books by Chico Xavier and other ones kind of gives us a lot of information about the spirit world, what the spirits do with us on earth, and kind of the beginning levels of heaven. But these ones really talk about the different levels, what it means, how it works, and other things. So there's a lot of information. So I want to thank everyone for being with me today on our first meeting of the year 2019. Please share this video, share this on other Facebook group sites. Please go to my YouTube, our BitChute channel. Please sign up, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube if you want to know when I do another upload of a new film. I upload these talks, which I will upload tonight. And then also I do like one video a week as Spiritism Explored and Explained, where I talk about different aspects. That's all on my BitChute and YouTube channel. Again, also then, there's many articles on my nwspiritism.com. And of course, there's my books, which I recommend that you look at, see which ones you like, which ones you don't. And I think one thing that though I would love for people to do is how to live. Read through what these mean chapter by chapter. I believe it will help you. So, but that is your prerogative. That's one thing about Spiritism. I'm not telling you have to do this or you're going to be damned. No, you've got plenty of lives. You got free will. Bless you wherever you are. Just keep working. Anyway, I want to sign off now, and God bless everyone. And thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. God bless.